Hello, everyone, and welcome to Teach Me Teacher, a podcast for educators where we, the teachers, become students ourselves. I'm your host, Jacob Chastain, and today, ladies and gentlemen, we are introing season 9 of the podcast. I can't believe it, but let's get to it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As always, I like to point out the music of the show. It's a little self-indulgent on my side, but that's okay. I get to be self-indulgent. I've been doing this for about 9 years almost. So, allow me some time. But regardless, the music, going back to some acoustic jams. I got the acoustic guitar that was recorded with right over here. Remember, I make all the music on this show from the early episodes to where it came in and out to the newer episodes where we've just kind of revised. I did have someone make a season intro years and years ago, which was also awesome. But I like to try my hand at doing some things. But you know what? The whole purpose of these season intros is to, one, welcome new people. It's always a nice place to start. There's over 300 episodes of Teach Me Teacher out there, literally hundreds of hours of conversations from people like Eric Weinstein in episode 200, to Alfie Kohn, to Kim Bearden of the Ron Clark Academy, to so many other absolutely amazing people. And I'm always shocked. I run into people who find the podcast or they've been talking to me for a while, and they don't realize that we've had some of the greatest minds in education. We've had we have Secretary Miguel Cardona on the podcast of the Biden administration. He podcasted from the White House, which was wild to me. But we've also had wonderful educators like Donalyn Miller and Laura Robb and Penny Kittle and Kelly Gallagher and Mr. D and so many others. So if you haven't made your way through the back catalog, there's so many wonderful people to listen to. But more importantly, we're starting fresh in this season. So what does that mean? Why has this season been kind of delayed? I usually don't take time off. I took time off last summer. Told you guys I was dealing with a lot of personal things and kind of took a hiatus. And lo and behold, there's still a bunch of stuff happening. And so I use this time to kind of reset, refocus, and kind of figure out where I want Teach Me Teacher to go at this point in its life cycle. Right now, the podcast maintains its downloads, whether I'm podcasting or not, whether I'm advertising or not. I used to have to put so much thought into pushing certain things, but the podcast kind of lives on its own. And so that leaves me at an interesting place to where I don't feel the grind. I feel the desire to be creative, the desire to push the podcasting space a little bit, in terms of what it is for educators. I think educational podcast or podcasts for educators, teachers, administrators, etc., are in a weird space because we're busy people, right? It's not a space to really do super long episodes, even though that's kind of where the podcasting space is. The people that are really diehard podcast listeners like myself, we love the 2-hour conversations, the 3-hour, 4-hour, 5-hour conversations, like Freeman did with Elon Musk and his team over there. It was a wild conversation if you heard it. But regardless, the teaching podcast space, it does better with a little of shorter episodes. But the people that also listen to Teach Me Teacher for a variety of reasons, not only because we've had some of the best educators on the show, but I think it's because I've kept the show as honest as possible. It's just real conversations. It's the stuff that's happening today. And I got to be honest, the last 2 years, because of where I worked, some of the topics of the show shifted a little bit. I was working at a place that wasn't as fond of intellectual discourse. And so it gave me some interesting challenges to overcome and to circumvent on this show. But I now work in a different place. And I got to tell you, I feel much more free to talk about the important things that are happening in education, to bring on different kinds of guests that aren't just the Instagram teachers or the TikTok teachers or the teachers with books or PDs or speaking schedules, but people that are a little bit outside of education that want to pinpoint their thoughts, who want to bring in some of their arguments, much like my conversation with Eric Weinstein. It really comes down to me wanting to talk to people that want to be a part of the solution of education. And I want to bring those conversations for the audience, you guys, to be able to sit back and listen and make your own judgments. I'm never bringing on guests to try to force an agenda or perspective. I'm trying to host as deep of a conversation as I can get from a particular guest so that you guys can navigate the complexities of education, all the ideas that are coming with it, and all the changes, and make up your own decisions about what things should be discussed, what things should be pursued, what things should be changed, etc. And so I'm trying to embody that, and I'm going to do my absolute best to bring a lot of that back this season because, like I said, it didn't go away, but it watered down a little bit over the last 2 years. And honestly, it was a personal decision because the podcast does not pay my bills. My other job does, which is working in wonderful schools with wonderful families and students. So that's kind of that preamble. But what is it about season 9 that I'm super excited for? One, we're going to bring back some amazing guests, but we're also going to host some brand new people on the show. I'm always on the lookout for amazing educators. I get pitched all the time, and you're more than welcome to pitch your stuff, or if you have an agent or something like that, I welcome all kinds of guests. But truthfully, 99% of my guests come from people that I'm listening to or that I feel like can answer a question that I'm having or I'm seeing. And I feel like that makes the most authentic stuff. And now that I'm going into my 3rd year as a high school administrator, it comes down to finding all the intricacies because I'm seeing things outside of my lens. I'm seeing things on a bigger scale, both to the district and the campus and the school and campus and the school and the teacher lens and the student lens and the special education lens. And I think it's allowing me to pursue different ideas and topics. And so I'm super excited to really expand what Teach Me Teacher has kind of touched. And truthfully, I feel like this season is it's going to create the trajectory of really what happens with Teach Me Teacher. And I mean that in the best positive ways. I mean it in the sense that, hopefully that we start gathering some people from outside of education, that we start bringing in people that want to be a part of the solution, that want to be educated so that when they go vote, when they listen to board meetings in their relative school districts, when they listen to politicians give their speeches and start saying all of their educational facts, or they go to the news and they hear their opinions, or insert whatever, that Teach Me Teacher can at least be a part of the solution. And my hopes is to be an intellectual hub where we can actually discuss some of the bigger topics and not just talk pedagogy. We've literally been doing that for years and years. There's hundreds of episodes that dive into the depths of what great teaching is, where research is coming from, and that is never going to leave the DNA of Teach Me Teacher. However, I really want to start bringing in people because these topics are huge. You can hear it in, I'm sure there's a lot of Joe Rogan fans out there. Listen, Joe Rogan, there's so many people on his show that are highly intelligent, that have a lot of strong opinions about teaching that I think are wrong, and that I think about public education are wrong. I also believe that he brings on people that aren't highly educated, that have the opinions of education that are also wrong. I think there's a lot of right opinions out there as well, but there's really the intellectual sides tend to be anti-public education, but they don't really talk to educators. They don't talk to teachers. They don't talk about really what it's like in schools. And so I think Teach Me Teacher can kind of serve as this middle ground between gathering some of these people who really want to have a genuine conversation, but in a way that is productive, or at least is focused on criticism that can be mediated or fixed or repaired. There's so many other factors that can go into this, and I think that's kind of hopefully my goal as we go into the season. But there's a couple other changes as well that I want to hit on before we close out for this intro, which is Video is now going to be standard for Teach Me Teacher. I've been doing it for a while over there on the Patreon. If you don't support Teach Me Teacher on the Patreon, it really does help. It helps me not have to be so reliant on ads. For those of you who don't know, Teach Me Teacher is independent. I run everything. I do absolutely everything. And so I pick and choose my ads, and I'm very careful with them. I try not to fill it with a bunch of garbage. But the Patreon is one of those ways to where you guys can support the show, and it allows me not to be so dependent on those things. And it really does help. So if you've ever had um, helpful episodes, helpful conversations, if you feel attached to the show in any way, you can support the show $5 a month, and you get all the episodes early, and we're going to be working on bonus content and everything else. But connected to that, I was saying the Patreon is where we've been putting video out there. And so we're going to start doing that on the YouTube channel. I've put videos up on the YouTube channel before, and I've cut up clips before for the Instagram and Facebook and everything. But I really want to start pushing that because there's just more ways to reach more people. I know there's a lot of people out there who just like to watch podcasts. I'm one of them as well. I listen to them, but I also watch. And so we're going to be trying to do that. I can't promise every episode will be recorded because some people just aren't comfortable being on camera. And I want to honor that, especially if I'm interviewing someone that isn't someone with a platform. They're just a great educator that I want to pull on to have that conversation. So video. So if you haven't subscribed to the Teach Me Teacher YouTube channel, you can just go to YouTube and go to Teach Me Teacher. You can see some of the other things on there, some of the other videos. And then starting now, we're going to be breaking things up, really trying to get the YouTube channel going as best as I can. That's really, I say that because I've been wanting to do video for a while. I've had the equipment, I have lights and cameras and all of that stuff, but it's just been something that honestly is just tedious. And so I really want to focus and get that piece done as well. Now, let me look at my notes real quick while we're sitting here. I want to tell you guys that truthfully, this podcast is something that I value a lot. I value the audience that listens to this, and anyone that's just now listening to me having a solo spiel. It really does come down to I'm going to do this show as long as people are listening. There have been times where I'm like, you know what, maybe it's time to move on. Maybe it's time to expand. And I do have a second podcast, Craft and Draft, that I do with Pam Ochoa, and her and I have fun doing that because it's really just us kind of catching up and talking about God knows what around education. And it's super fun. But for Teach Me Teacher, it really does serve a purpose at this point. It's kind of a touchstone in a lot of the corners of education. I won't say all the corners, but it definitely has influence. It definitely has reach. And I'm proud of that personally because it was built by me and you. You guys listened, y'all spread the word, y'all reviewed the podcast, and all of that really does help. So honestly, I just kind of want to close this by saying thank you for almost letting this podcast go a decade. I think it's super cool. And truthfully, I think that we are starting on a new path. We're going to go in interesting ways. And the whole goal is going to be really analyzing what needs to happen in education, hosting the conversations that lead to change, and inspiring healthy debate. I don't want to sit here and just I've had times on the show where I'm very, celebratory and I'm over the top with energy, and that a lot of that is me. And so that's all going to always be there. But I want my focus to really start honing in on some of the more in-depth aspects of education. So as the season progresses and continues, and I start capturing some of these guests that just have busier schedules, so it takes a little bit longer. Hopefully, you guys will be along with that shift and join the conversation, and be a part of the solution, because it's no secret that education is on the struggle bus. Public education is under attack in a lot of ways. Some of them deserved, a lot of them not deserved, a lot of them ignorant attacks that really have no basis in reality whatsoever, besides the most extreme versions of something that you can find. And if you want to find extremes to justify your opinions or beliefs, the internet has plenty of that. But Teach Me Teacher is not going to be about that. We're going to be about rational, intellectual, deep conversations, debate, inquiry, research, and pretty much everything in between. And then, of course, tons of laughter and lighthearted conversations, because good Lord, no one needs to be serious all the time. But if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Teach Me Teacher. Be posting all the interviews there so you can watch, maybe get to know these people a little bit better. Post an episode every single Monday, starting when this episode is released. So every Monday after that, we are going to open the season with Dave Burgess, Teach Like a Pirate. He has a wonderful announcement. I know what the announcement is because I already recorded the episode with him. It's going to be amazing. You guys don't want to miss that. So that's coming in the following weeks. We also have some wonderful Instagram people and some returning guests that people have been asking for. So keep an eye out, keep an ear out for all the wonderful stuff coming. If you haven't already, support the show on Patreon. You will still get every episode early. You will get access to the full episodes before they drop, sorry. And so I'll try to do that as often as I possibly can, doing bonus content as often as I can. So if you haven't already, leave a review. I believe we're like over 450 reviews, the vast majority of those 5 stars. So if you want to drop some reviews for the podcast, that really does help as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going into the new season. Thank you for indulging me in this. Thank you for listening to the new intro. Hopefully it's inspiring. Hopefully it gets you going every single Monday. If you want a topic on the show, DM me on Instagram. That's Hey Chastain on Instagram. Or you can use the contact page, teachmeteacherpodcast.com.